Tulsi Gabbard ditches the Democratic Party and Anna Kasparian has thoughts. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black. I don't know what I said.
The first time ever any...
What are you people?
We're American.
We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America with Vin and Sori. We are not left wing. We are not right wing. We are just right. Check us out, facebook.com/America Middle, where you will be able to hang out with folks. Yours truly does show up from time to time in that forum. I have to warn you, it is a free speech environment. So if you have issues with that, no disrespect to you, I'm just letting you know that you're probably not going to enjoy it because we allow for free speech. I don't know how else to say it. So if you're a free speecher and if you believe in free speech, there you go. Facebook.com/America Middle. I'm seeing some of my favorite human beings on the planet. I'm seeing Ben Moem. I'm seeing the big homie Randy. I'm seeing Tasco. Ben, I get your point. You should have called me before you left. But yeah, I definitely get your point. And it's conversations we've had, and we continue to get better. Usually I'm with my partner in crime, but she's on mandatory bed rest. We've got a kid coming along. The due date is the 15th of October. So we're not going to be able to do our regularly scheduled program until that situation is out of the way. That is having our seventh child. We were at the hospital yesterday because we had to do some, or a couple days ago, we had an unscheduled situation. By the way, thank you very much, Middle Earth. And so, you know, we went to the hospital a couple nights ago and everybody was cool. Test came back good or whatnot. It's just, we're on the home stretch and, you know, it gets a little chippy. Especially when you're at the back end of the whole millennial timeline. What you on?
I'm grabbing mom's computer.
Mom's computer's right there. Oh, that is bad. Hey, come over here. Look at my girl, y'all. Look at this shit. Look at that. Go down. Show them your beautiful face. Look at that. She's so. This is obviously Sori's daughter. Look at that. Unbelievably beautiful. What a good idea with that bandana.
It didn't look good on my arm.
That's tough as hell, bro. I really like that. That's gonna go good. She's got a clothing line that she's about to start. Tough Chick Chic. Look for it. Look for it. But anyway, and obviously she's gonna model for it because the only person I've seen prettier than her is her mother. Okay. That is really. Did you come up with that idea? Or did Mom?
I did.
That is.
And I have some earrings that'll match it.
That's badass.
Actually, can I? I'll bring the earrings in right now, or if you're busy.
Well, I'm kind of in the middle of trying to change the world here, but I'll see you soon, inshallah.
Okay.
I love you. Good job. Really good.
Thanks.
I love that. Okay, guys, here we go. That's my daughter. She's about to create the most ridiculous clothing line in the world, and it's gonna be amazing. Our family 2023 is gonna be a massive, massive, massive moment for our family. Okay. Anna says she's now a Republican. Tulsi was just on Joe Rogan, said she's an independent and doesn't have much love for the Republicans either. We'll look at what Rig in the house. Rig is one of my favorite people. He's one of my favorite people on the left. I'm pretty sure Rig is a leftist. Okay. All right, guys, here we go. My man Applejack is okay. Now we can really start because my homie Applejack is here. There's another person who's one of my favorite people, but she ain't gonna come in here anymore. Rest in peace to that friendship. And I love Shorty too. It's all good though. That's the way the world works at times. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, here we go. Anna Kasparian. I guess Anna Kasparian is commenting on Tulsi Gabbard's escape from the Democratic Party. Let's check it out. Hold on, guys. Are you guys hearing that? Because I'm not hearing. Hey, Philly Steve. Philly Steve in the house. Let me see, guys, if I can get this volume working. Surprise, surprise. We've got technical difficulties. Who would have thought that I'd have technical difficulty? Let's see if this works.
Minded Democrat.
Okay, there we go. So, okay, so we got. I know you guys would much rather see Tulsi than me, but this is the way this is gonna go. Okay, here we go. Tulsi Gabbard telling us that she is out of the Democratic Party, and I guess Anna Kasparian, according to the person who sent me the video, I guess Anna Kasparian has some sort of issue with Tulsi, which I didn't really know that was a thing, but let's check it out. Not a neolib, good riddance, right wing Nazi. I'm assuming that King Yeti, by the way, shout out to King Yeti. I'm assuming King Yeti is talking about Tulsi being a right-wing Nazi. I'm not sure. Doug Johnson in the house. Doug Johnson was actually the one that broke the story for me. He sent me a text. And so yeah, he also sent me a text on Kanye. I haven't been able to review that video yet, but I probably should review that video. Anyway, here's Tulsi Gabbard. She's declaring she's leaving the... Holy shit. Let's see. Pfizer just admitted that they didn't test a COVID vax prevented transmission before rolling it out. Holy shit. Oh boy. I tell you what, those lawsuits are going to be coming early and often. I just had a friend and she posted about how she was vaccinated. And I was like, yo, that's so random. Like, I haven't seen anybody bragging about being vaccinated in a long time. But yeah, Applejack did send that to me. Yeah, like, we got a copy strike, actually. Copyright. We got a community guideline violation on the other channel. They threatened us. We're going to take down your channel, all types of shit. For quoting an article from the New York Times, and they hit us with it. And I sent a rebuttal to it. They're still decisioning on it. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. Michael Ray in the house. Michael Ray, my brother from another mother. Michael Ray, are you still at war with your creator, or have you bent the knee to your savior who loves you? Okay, here we go. Tulsi Gabbard declares that she is leaving the Democratic Party. Anna Kasparian commenting. Let's check it out.
Join me in leaving the Democratic Party. If you can no longer stomach the direction that the so-called woke Democratic Party ideologues are taking our country, then I invite you to join me.
Tulsi Gabbard announced what, honestly, most...
Applejack has ruined what's her name? What's that black lady's name, Applejack, that we don't like anymore? Nina Turner. Applejack has ruined Nina Turner for me. Nina Turner, I saw in her Twitter post yesterday, she posted, can anybody on the right or whatever tell me what woke means? And I actually thought that was a really interesting question. What does woke mean? When people who are against, quote, woke ideology speak on it, what does it mean? Because it seems that woke is like kind of emerged out of the primordial sludge of CRT. You remember the whole CRT thing? It was a nightmare. So that's kind of when the whole woke thing happened. What's up, Michelle? So like, what does woke mean? It just seems to me that woke is now a catch-all for any sort of social movement that's pro-equality, is what it looks like to me. But that's not the point of the story. But woke is a trigger word used by the right wing. Honestly, in a negative context, it's almost exclusively right wingers who use the term woke in a negative context. But I want to know, like, from your vantage point, if you're on the right or the left, what does woke mean to you? Okay, we continue. Play the whole clip. Yeah, I'm assuming that Anna is going to do what I'm doing, which is play the clip, comment, play the clip, comment. If she doesn't, then I'll have to walk around and try to find the whole clip. But this video is 18-minute long, so I'm assuming that might happen. We continue.
Common sense, rational Americans already knew. She's a Republican. She has made it pretty clear in various ways in the recent past, including hosting Tucker Carlson's show when he was out, constantly rubbing elbows with all sorts of nefarious figures in the right wing, criticizing Democrats for what Republicans engage in far more than Democrats do. And I'll make that case with the receipts in just a moment. But I love this because it's this self-important announcement that she's leaving the Democratic Party over the one thing that Republicans have decided to make their politics about, which is anti-wokeness.
Well, she didn't say that she was a Republican, though, Anna. Now, again, it's an 18-minute video, so they're going to play the whole clip. Maybe Tulsi does say, I am now a Republican, but I always looked at Tulsi as sort of an independent type person who, you know, Bernie Sanders, right, is technically independent, but he caucuses with Democrats, I think is the spiel. Wasn't that the whole criticism of Bernie, is that he refused to like join the gang? He refused to click up because he didn't run as an actual Democrat? I'm not sure. But it's ironic to me that Anna says that this person is self-important. Anna, this woman was running for president and got a pretty large buzz when she took down your friend Kamala Harris for her horrible treatment of black men in the prison industrial complex. So she is important. She's so important that CNN et al., after she took down Kamala, basically banned her from the future debates. And nobody can convince me. I am certain that Obama, the Democratic media apparatus, the DNC, all of those people had Kamala as next. Okay, they were going to say we had the first black president, we had the first female president. They had her as next. And then when Kamala took down Joe Biden with the whole I was the girl on the bus thing, she was center stage and she was getting so much fawning media. And then Tulsi took her down, and the Democrats and the Democratic media could never forgive her for that. So the fact of the matter is, she's absolutely important, and her officially leaving the Democratic Party, Anna, is absolutely newsworthy. So to say it's self-important is kind of weird coming from Anna Kasparian. We continue.
That is the full extent of their political beliefs. Anti-wokeness. That's all they talk about. That's all they draw attention to. They've got nothing else. So without further ado.
Well, I've got a son who's in the inner machinations of, at least on the Republican side, and we've had all types of debates or whatever. But our house, we truly believe in free thought here. We really believe in free thought at our house. So he's out there working for the Republicans. That's fine. That's my son. He's always going to be my son. But I have seen, I will say, in the last couple days, Republicans, at least in Maine, really hitting up Janet Mills relative to the economy, going after the economy and things of that nature. But as far as like culture war issues, the Republicans have done a masterful job. You know, one of the things that you're trying, I went to a language school one time. I had to do whatever. And one of the things about language is you want to be able, one of the tricks about language is you want to say as much as you possibly can with as least words possible. And the cultures and civilizations that have created sort of verbal templates, the cultures that have the verbal templates where one word you can communicate giant ideas with little words, actually tend to do very well. And so that's why, in theory, you come up with slang and things of that nature. All of that is designed as shorthand. So like, for example, when you're talking theology and people say things like infralapsarianism, okay, that is one word, but it contains with it probably an hour-long dissertation to explain what the actual issue is. So what I would say about Republicans is they do a really good job of packaging a bunch of ideas into one word. So CRT, woke, all those kinds of things. They're very, very good at packaging all of those concepts. And obviously, when we were in language school, one of the things they talked about was the backdrop of that, or the element of that that's not advantageous is the fact that if somebody mistakes what you're saying, then it could have massive consequences because you only have one word. So there's a balance that you have to strike when you're dealing with language. But the Republicans have done a very good job. CRT, woke, whatever. And once they hear that, their audience automatically turns off. They automatically turn off. They automatically shut down. They know exactly. There is no equivalent to that on the Democrat side. I mean, they tried with the term MAGA. They tried to turn MAGA into a slur. It just didn't work out. They tried with Ultra MAGA. They paid millions of dollars to this consultant. They came up with Ultra MAGA because they're trying to find one of these efficient terms to use and throw around. And it just looks fascism. Yeah, that is true. But the problem with the fascism moniker is that they're doing everything that they accuse the fascists of doing. Like, so there's a pro-life dad and the FBI showed up at his house, guns blazing, all the rest of it. And we already know about the Biden administration relative to free speech and what happened between the New York Post and Twitter. We heard Mark Zuckerberg talking about how they were advised during the election to manage people. So the reason the fascism thing hasn't really stuck relative on that side is because it can be used both ways. And I've seen it used both ways and successfully. Because the fact of the matter is, the ruling elite in this country, whether they be Republican or Democrat, have to, by definition, initiate fascistic measures in order to maintain power. That's a fact. That's just a fact. So they're both fascists. So the fascist thing doesn't stick, but the woke thing is doing really, really well. We continue.
Why don't we take a look at the entirety of her videos and do a breakdown just to point out the insane hypocrisy of what she claims Democrats are up to while completely providing cover for the right wing.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness.
And elitist groups of warmongers who are cowardly driven by wokeness. That's the entirety of the Democratic Party. Well, look, the squad, all the rest of them kept voting to approve all of those Ukraine billions. We're sending billions. I don't know. What's the number now? Applejack, raid 120 or whatever to Ukraine. Yeah. But I mean, I agree with that. But I think, the same exact thing could be said on the right. But again, Tulsi, to this point, hasn't said, therefore, I'm going to be a Republican. She's not saying that. All she's saying is, I can't be a Democrat. She's not telling anybody to go to the Republican Party, not yet anyway. We continue.
Elitist cabal elitist cabal is interesting framing, okay? Because
I don't think that's an interesting framing. All of us have been saying that it's a small group of elitists who plan to do things domestically and across the border so as to solidify their power position for themselves and their progeny. I don't think that that's interesting language. I think all of us agree with that. And I'm assuming the first time I heard about elitists and things of that nature in this current sense was actually from TYT. So I don't understand why now she's taking issue with what Tulsi's saying when we've all been saying that. We continue.
She loves to hang out with elitists. I mean, she's good friends with Tucker Carlson, good friends with, before he passed away, Sheldon Adelson, hangs out with all sorts of elitists, to say the least. And in fact, if you just kind of take a look at the details on what she says about warmongers, the elitist cabal of warmongers, she kind of fits in that category. What do I mean? Well, Mrs. Aloha loves to pretend like she's the peace candidate. At least when she was running for president, that's what she.
Mrs. Aloha. You know, I'm pretty certain, shout out to Netabot, I am pretty certain that if Trump would have, if Tulsi was a raging feminist leftist, I'm certain that if Trump would have said Mrs. Aloha, they would have called him a racist. Aloha is the language that's indigenous to the people of Hawaii, and I wasn't part of this, okay, but the Americans did to those people what normally happens to indigenous people that have a plot of land that's beautiful and rich in resources. So for her to say Mrs. Aloha that way, I mean, all of us are grown men and women, so we're not going to whine about it. I just want to point out, though, that if Trump would have said that, we would have gotten an entire week of how racist Trump is for using the term Mrs. Aloha to talk about Tulsi. We continue.
Kind of branded herself as, I'm all about aloha, I do yoga videos, I go surfing, and I'm anti-war. I'm anti-regime change war. But for anyone who takes even a moment.
That may be because she saw firsthand the carnage and destruction of American foreign policy that you have never seen. You, according to great one M. Reap, actually sat down with Madeleine Albright, who looked dead into the camera and said it was worth it to kill those 500,000 Iraqi children by starving them to death with our sanctions. So Anna, you have a different understanding because you've never seen starving kids. So you can smile and be honored to, quote, hang out with Madeleine Albright, even though she's almost single-handedly responsible for destroying those kids. She could have stopped it. She didn't. And you can go ahead and Google Elian Gonzalez and see how Democrats treated an illegal immigrant from Cuba. So her and Janet Reno and them boys. So it's very tough for me when a person who's never been outside of their comfort zone, never been outside of a green zone in a hostile area, when those people start talking about foreign policy and war and things of that nature, I'm sorry, Anna, have some humility. This woman was actually in theater. She was actually on the ground when this shit happened. You should at least acknowledge that. We continue.
Read into her congressional record, her past statements and various interviews that she's done. She's not the anti-war candidate, far from it. Let me give you the
Well, she never said she was anti-war. She said she was anti-regime change war. That's not the same thing. Now, I'm a Christian pacifist, theologically speaking. So I don't believe we should be in war ever. But I also know that the vast majority of the world, including the Christian world, are not pacifists. And so in that context, war to some degree is necessary. We continue.
Seats. Because that's what matters on this show, the actual evidence to back up the point that we're trying to make. Fact of the matter is, she's very much in favor of war. I'll give you, I don't know, several examples. Great article that was written by Max Van Dyke in International Policy Digest. Good summary here. During an interview with the Hawaii Tribune Herald, Gabbard described her views on foreign policy with the following. When it comes to the war against terrorists, I'm a hawk. When it comes to counterproductive wars of regime change, I'm a dove.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And if Anna knew anything about war and combat and things of that nature, she would know that prosecuting those two issues are radically different. Regime change wars require a big army. They require a heavy occupational presence, and they almost certainly require and guarantee massive civilian casualties, i.e. Iraq, etc., etc. The war on terror is fought mostly in an asymmetric way. In other words, special mission units, DevGru, CAG, those type of guys in concert with the CIA, the activity, those kinds of situations where you get small groups in there, send them in. I mean, you had the DevGru team and a Jawbreaker CIA team went and took care of bin Laden, right? That was what was reported. It wasn't a big giant situation. It was a group of small guys in a bird. It's out now. I mean, the bird had they had some pretty high-tech signature management, meaning the ability to not be detected via radar, sonar, and other detection capabilities. So prosecuting those two kinds of wars are completely different, but all Anna hears is war. So she thinks, oh, if you're saying you're with the war on terror, that means that you're just another war hawk. No. One is completely different than the other. Okay? I don't need big army if I'm just going to kill al-Zarqawi or bin Laden or whoever. Okay? I don't need big army for that. Okay? So, hell, I don't even need big army to foment revolutions. I mean, just Google Arab Spring, okay? We didn't use a lot of big army for that, but we were absolutely involved. That's the entire reason Green Berets exist. You go over there, the intelligence agency has already been there. They've identified disaffected young men, and you go down there and you recruit them, you train them, and then they initiate the coup at your direction. That's how that shit works, Anna. So anybody who's remotely familiar with this stuff knows that what she's talking about is vastly different than what Anna's talking about. But because Anna has no experience, or obviously hasn't talked to anybody with that kind of experience, she goes and says this. We continue.
Now, the war on terror, as you all can imagine, is very vague. You could describe anything as a war on terror.
Ridiculous. That is an absolutely ridiculous statement. No, you cannot define anything as a war on terror. We have a very, very specific definition of what the war on terror is. It's specifically talking about us versus the Muslim world. Everybody knows that. This is the thing that gets me with Anna. If I go to 10 Americans and I say that were around during 9/11, and I say war on terror, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? All of them would say bin Laden or some Middle Eastern whatever. That's not a vague statement. So these are the things that kill me about these people. No, the war on terror is not a vague, vacuous idea. We all know what the war on terror is about. We continue. Good Lord.
I mean, anyone could say that we're engaging and helping the Ukrainians against Russia due to Russia's terror. We're waging.
No. The global war on terror is not talking about nations invading other nations. The global war on terror is specifically about small groups of asymmetric warriors who commit acts of terrorism in order to influence a political decision one way or the other. That's a definition of what terrorism is. Vladimir Putin, you call him tyrant, you call him whatever, he's not a terrorist. Why? Because he is operating with an actual military that are actually subject to the Geneva Convention protocols, et cetera, et cetera. Whether or not he does is a different story. But this argument right here from Anna is just weak as hell. We continue.
War on terror against Russia as they're terrorizing Ukraine. You can use that statement to fit into any international conflict. So it was intentionally vague because if you look at her record, there's all sorts of military funding that she's been in favor of, all sorts of interventions she's been in favor of. It's been pretty incredible. Elaborating on her views on the war on terror during an appearance on NDTV, Gabbard told an interviewer that the US has a responsibility to, quote, root out evil wherever it is, to defeat Islamic extremism. One might easily mistake this as a quote from Dick Cheney.
I don't care who it is. There is such a thing as Islamic extremism. I'm actually very, very aware of that. I got love for my my Muslim brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. But the fact of the matter is, they know more than anybody that Islamic extremism is a problem, because most of the victims of Islamic extremism are Muslims. When they brought me in that little thingy there, and they showed me all the videos of ISIS just lining people up and putting bullets in them by the dozens, and then throwing them off a cliff, all those people they threw over that cliff were Muslims. They were Shia. So there's absolutely an issue with evil radical Islamic extremism. That's just a fact. Now, it's my understanding that Miss Gabbard is a Hindu, and if you look at the conflicts between Hindus and Muslims, especially in India, you could see that they've had a violent past, and it's not all one way. The Muslims are getting torn to shreds over there in India. If you want to bring that background and say that she has some sort of socio-religious animus towards Muslims, I would think that would be in bound. But this is almost a form of the genetic fallacy. So because she says something that Dick Cheney said or Bush said, that automatically means that she's on the right. Everybody has said this about radical Islamic extremism. So she never said that she was a dove and that she hated war completely. What she said was she's not a fan of regime change wars. And I agree with that. We didn't spend $8 trillion on asymmetric warfare. We spent $8 trillion since 2001 on big army, occupational forces, all type of shit. So, but if you don't have a basic understanding of how that shit works, then you end up saying stuff like this and looking silly. We continue.
And that's exactly right. Exactly right. It is our responsibility to root out.
Okay, Coco, if you hang out until the end of this discussion, we can go back and forth on what you said. Pro-life, according to the Bible, any sperm not used for reproduction is a sin. That's not true. And you don't know when life starts. That's not true. So you're asserting your choice on ignorance. That's not true. You just assume and ignore science. That's not true. Coco, not literally every sentence that you wrote there on this topic is not true, but I want to respect my audience. So if you can hold on, there's 13 minutes left of this. If you can hold on, we can have a discussion. We continue.
Evil wherever it is. Now, what she's referring to is Muslims. If you look at her record, she also sees.
Well, she said radical Islamic extremism. So obviously she's referring to Muslims. But again, there are extremist Muslims in the world that do need to be rooted out. Now, again, I don't believe that Jesus wants us to kill anybody, but I also know that when people are threatened, they're going to act how they're going to act. We continue.
To, have some pretty serious Islamophobic beliefs. But I'll continue.
It is not Islamophobic to say that our enemy is motivated by a certain interpretation of their religion. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, Salafist Muslims who believe it's their war, it's their obligation to do jihad until we say La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah and pay zakat or jizya. And then Muhammad says their blood and their property will be safe. And this was one of the later hadiths that have not been abrogated. I don't know if how familiar Anna is with Islamic theology, the principle of abrogation, the value of later hadiths versus earlier hadiths, the difference between Meccan surahs and Medinan surahs. I'm not sure, but it is not Islamophobic to say that in a religion that has over 1 billion people, if 1% of them are Salafists, when we have a problem as Westerners, that's not Islamophobic. That's just being knowledgeable about Islam. We continue.
Give you some more receipts for this warmonger who lives in a glass house yet is throwing stones.
She's not a warmonger, Anna. She's not. All she said was there is a place for military interdiction when we're talking about people threatening our country. But she does not like us meddling into other people's affairs and changing their regimes because those are too expensive. They cost too much blood and money. Please communicate with some sort of... All right, we continue.
At the Democrats. By the way, as if the Republican Party isn't full of warmongers?
She never said she was a Republican yet. She never said, I'm leaving the Democratic Party, so now we're going to go Republican. Anna, you, after the Roe v. Wade decision, you said, I'm done with the Democrats. Did that mean that you're automatically a Republican? See, this right here is going along with the sort of duopoly that TYT is supposed to be against. Why are you assuming that she's a Republican because she's saying she's out of the Democratic Party? If you believe that the duopoly is a bad thing, then you should be celebrating this because you yourself said, I'm done with the Democrats. We continue.
Now let's just keep it real. The Democratic Party has deep issues. I am not erasing that. I'm not providing cover for that. That is something we talk about on this show on a regular basis. My issue with Tulsi Gabbard is her pretending that she's this peace-loving individual who doesn't want these interventions abroad. She absolutely has been supportive of these interventions.
I'm sorry, you're just wrong. You quoted it yourself. She never said, I'm a peaceful person across the board. She never said that. What she said was, when it comes to unproductive regime change wars, I'm a dove. When it comes to rooting out Islamic terrorism, I'm a hawk. But the mission profiles and the necessities of accomplishing both of those missions are vastly different. You have to acknowledge that. Otherwise, it looks weird, bro.
But more importantly, as she's attacking Democrats, she's providing cover for Republicans not only engaging in the same bad behavior, but...
Okay, she already said on Rogan she's going to the independent party. Somebody get me that clip. We're not done with the whole video yet, so maybe whatever. But I mean, yeah, DJ's right. Like, you're pro Ukraine. You're pro-American intervention into Ukraine and us giving billions of dollars to Ukrainians, many of whom are Nazis. We keep, unfortunately, seeing these accidental situations where all these Ukrainian commanders, etc., are walking around with Nazi insignia, got Bandera in the back, all the rest of it. You're that. Does that mean that you're a warmonger and that you love war? Ridiculous. We continue.
Doing so in a far more extreme way. Really? You're gonna pretend like the Republican Party is the peaceful anti-war party? Are you insane?
She never said that. You're saying that. She never said that yet.
Let me give you more. According to a 2018 article from The Intercept, Gabbard again doubled down.
Oh my God, Coco, I really hope you stay around, Coco. The science considered 16 weeks. Sorry, you are completely wrong, Coco. But please, if you're around after this, we'll have a discussion. We continue.
On her support for drone strikes in the Middle East to fight terror. Let's pause for a second. Let's come to me. Go back to TYT in the same bad behavior, but doing so in a far more extreme way. Really? You're gonna pretend like the Republican Party is the peaceful anti-war party? Are you insane? Let me give you more. According to a 2018 article from The Intercept, Gabbard again doubled down on her support for drone strikes in the Middle East to fight terror. Let's pause for a second. Let's come to me. Go back to TYT's YouTube page, Facebook page, wherever you watch your content. Go back to the archives and watch our commentary about President Barack Obama's expansion of the drone war. We were always incredibly critical of that. But while we were critical, Tulsi Gabbard doubled down on that policy. She liked that policy. She liked that expansion. Let me give you more. She said, with these terror cells, for example. Yes, I still believe.
She liked the expansion. She liked the expansion. Okay, all right. Well, here we go. This is. I don't know where she's quoting. This is from The Intercept, which The Intercept is known as a left-wing anti-war outlet, I believe. Here is the headline article for The Intercept. It says that Gabbard endorses very limited. You see how that term very limited use of drones is in quotes? That means those were her actual words. The actual word she used was she endorsed a very limited use of drones against ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which I have spoken out against drone bombings more than a lot of people that I know. And I would say, of course, there is a proper use of drone strikes and an improper one. For example, go ahead and Google the Anwar al-Awlaki hit. Now, I disagreed with killing him because it was an extrajudicial killing, and the man is an American citizen. Awlaki was born in New Mexico, I'm pretty sure. Allahu alam. And he was killed without due process, read the Constitution. But as far as the methodology that we used to kill him, it was a drone strike. The Iranian general that we killed him and his driver, and only him and his driver. Those are surgical, tactical moves that accomplished what they were supposed to accomplish with little to no civilian casualties. Mr. Awlaki, his driver died with him, and the Iranian general, his driver died with him. So if Tulsi says I am pro surgical strikes, that's not the same thing as saying I'm pro expanding the program. What Obama did was he didn't necessarily expand it as far as monetarily, but he did relax some of the ROE as to when we would be cleared to hit someone. So a lot of these guys, much like, like what you see in Ukraine. You remember we did all those stories with the Ukrainians when they were setting up all these heavy weapons and machinery, mortar shit and all that type of shit by schools and hospitals. Do you remember I had that pro-Ukrainian girl on and she was talking about how it was fine that Ukrainians posted up in a hospital and a maternity ward, knowing full well that then would become a military target? And she said that, hey, it's war, they get to do that. And then I said, well, what about them setting up howitzers by schools? She said, hey, it's war, they get to do that. Those are things where now you're talking about involving civilians, and we should be against that. Mr. Obama relaxed the ROE as to when you could press the button to drone someone, and so you end up killing people at weddings or funerals. And that everybody's against. But the idea that because Obama abused the drone program, that anybody that says anything nuanced about the drone program is in that bucket, I'm sorry, but again, she is telling us how ignorant she is about how warfare operates in the modern day. And I'm not trying to insult her, because all of us are ignorant about something. I barely graduated high school, for God's sake. So all of us are ignorant about something, but clearly this is an area where Anna Kasparian doesn't have much expertise, obviously.
The right approach to take is these quick strike forces, surgical strikes in and out very quickly, no long-term deployment, no long-term occupation, to get rid of the threat that extremists and then get out. And the very limited use of drones in those situations where our military is not able to get in without creating an unacceptable level of risk.
That is exactly what I just said. Notice how Tulsi talked about no long-term deployments, no long-term occupation, because when you're doing a regime change war, you have to initiate with big army, and then you have to sit there. Remember? Well, you initiate with the Marine Corps, but the big army has to come in and then babysit afterward. I just said that, right? Anna has no idea what she's talking about. So to her, drone, it's all the same thing. There's no nuance, there's no differentiation. War, all the same thing. There's no nuance, there's no differentiation. But anybody that knows anything about this stuff knows what she's talking about. everybody supports tactical, surgical, positive identification of combatants and limiting civilian casualties as much as possible. Meanwhile, not making it so that a DevGru wife or a combat applications wife gets a bad phone call. So there's a balance here of preserving American lives and civilian lives with these drone attacks. The problem is the relaxation and expansion of the drone program. That is where Obama went left.
That is the exact line of thinking that Obama used in his expansion of a drone war that killed untold numbers of civilians.
No, that's the justification he used, but it wasn't the logic. He lied, Anna, because he wanted to be able, he was running on how horrible the global war on terror was. He was going to bring everybody back home. There were too many American deaths and Americans were dying. And so he expanded the drone program to lower the fatality count of Americans. That's what happened. He lied. Mr. Obama has never spent a day in any sort of combat theater other than Chicago. He's a politician. So again, this is not, it's not a good look. We continue.
Innocent individuals who were not members of any insurgent group, who were not part of any terrorist cell, just innocent people. In some cases.
Vin, Anna is not ignorant. She's obviously lying. You're giving her a get out of jail free card. Nah, because like I said, the kind of, when I talk to certain, I got friend DJ, I got another friend. He's a big Seven Dust fan. When people know what they're talking about relative to this topic, it becomes very clear. There's things that they say that they're not emphasizing. Okay, this guy, okay. She has no idea about any of this stuff. She's an outside observer with an opinion. I don't believe that she understands the difference between a regime change war and an asymmetrical warfare and how that works. I don't think she understands those distinctions. I just don't. There's nothing about the way she's talking or the way that she has talked indicates to me that she knows what she's talking about. So I'm actually taking her in good faith here. She's just ignorant on this point.
As they were mourning their loved ones who had died as a result of our terror against them. Children, women, people celebrating at a wedding. Those were the quick drone strikes that we engaged in. The same drone strikes that Tulsi Gabbard is super supportive of in that comment.
That's a lie. That is a lie. She said she wants limited uses of, she said very limited uses of drone strikes. That's what she said. Good Lord. I mean, if she, I mean, you read the quote, Anna? Here's what she said. While many on the left have applauded Gabbard's anti-interventionism, some of her other foreign policy stances have also angered the left and received praise from conservatives. She has, for example, argued in support of the global war on terror, a position antithetical to her anti-war image. No, I've never heard Tulsi say she was anti-war. I've heard her say a bunch of times that she is anti-regime change war. Okay? Asked if she still favors a small footprint approach with limited use of weaponized drones against groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, Gabbard said, with these terror cells, for example, yes, I still believe that the right approach to take is these quick strike forces. By the way, quick strike forces also indicates boots on the ground. Surgical strikes in and out very quickly, no long-term deployment, no long-term occupation. Again, she said quick strike forces. She's talking about DevGru. She's talking about the combat applications group. She's talking about the activity. Quick strike forces. Those are people, boots on the ground, not just drones, which is again part of asymmetrical warfare. So what she's talking about is what I said earlier. When you're chasing a guy or you want to eliminate a cell of people, you don't need big army. You don't need a giant Marine Corps. You need good intelligence, signal intelligence, human intelligence on the ground, positive identify your guy, and then you figure out how to kill them. Are we going to drone them? We're going to ambush them? We're going to CQB? What are we doing? Anna, That's what she said. She's not supporting just this peanut butter approach to droning that Obama did, which he obviously relaxed those ROE because Obama didn't understand the ramifications of that. All he understood was I need less bodies. So there was a time in 2007, 8ish where even the 1SFOD guys were getting wrecked, man. They were doing 10 hits a night, all types of shit. Of course you're gonna have attrition if you got guys door kicking 10 doors a night, obviously, because these people that we're fighting are not dumb. They listen, man. I mean, these guys have been found in possession of videos of our guys going in and CQBing, and they clearly adjusted to those tactics because there's only so many things you can do when you're breaching. Now you got one group of guys, they believe that you should kind of do the sandwich approach, so you get an element on the roof and then an element at the door. Another group of guys like, nah, we're just going to go into the door because you're sacrificing possible element of surprise, right? Element of surprise, speed, violence of action. So the point is, if you're doing all that door kidding, whatever your breaching philosophy is, Americans are gonna die, and that's what Obama was afraid of. He was not afraid. He was not thinking like Tulsi, because Tulsi was actually on the ground, and I believe that Tulsi was a medic. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but she would be particularly sensitive to American soldiers getting wounded because she would have seen it up close, which is something Anna has no idea about. So I understand anybody who's ever had to work on an American soldier or see an American soldier bleeding out or hear an American soldier calling for his mother or talking to his wife as he's about to die. Everybody who's ever dealt with that would say, yeah, if we could have just dropped the drone on that house instead of losing Randy, we would have done it. She doesn't know what she's talking about here. I mean, shout out to her, but she has no idea what she's talking about. We continue.
Let me give you more. Oh, there's so much more, guys. You getting tired of this? Because I love it. All it took was just a moment for everyone to sit their asses down and read about her. Just read about her. Look at her congressional record. But there were so many people who somehow were gullible enough to think that this woman was representative of peace and anti-imperialism. What a joke. Let me give you more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you said anti-imperialism because there's a big difference between being anti-war and anti-imperialist. For example, as I said, I don't believe that lethal self-defense is justified. But I promise you, dear listener, I'm very, very good friends with one of the folks here. DJ, he's probably still in the thing. DJ loves Jesus just like I do. But I promise you, if at 12:30 in the morning, DJ's wife hits him and says, babe, there's somebody downstairs, I know exactly what my brother's gonna do. He's gonna get that Desert Eagle on the side of his bed. He's gonna cock that shit and he's gonna go downstairs. And if he catches you in the house, he's gonna send you to Allah. There's a difference between that and DJ taking his Desert Eagle and going into somebody else's house. Anna, what she is talking about are what you would call defensive wars. These guys are a threat to us. They've declared jihad on us. Their little mufti has declared a fatwa that says, declared multiple fatwa that says, we need to kill the Americans, blah, 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 blah. Okay, then we're going to kill you, bro. That's what she's talking about. What you're talking about is you're conflating the two, and that's not the same thing. We continue.
Gabbard also voted to increase the defense budget in 2018. She actually did so a few times. In fact, Gabbard has a bit of a history of voting against measures that would reduce military spending. For example, in 2013, Gabbard voted against measures to save money on aircraft carriers, reduce funding for submarines, cut wasteful spending, take steps toward closing Guantanamo Bay, and reducing Pentagon spending. She voted against all that.
Well, yeah, I understand why she would vote against that because she's been a grunt on the ground. She voted against measures to save money on aircraft carriers. How were they going to save the money? Were they going to take that money from personnel? Or were they going to start skimping on things that would screw with their security? You know, like how Mr. Bill Clinton refused to give those boys AC-130s when all the guys on the ground in Somalia were saying, we need some AC-130s and some armored vehicles. And Mr. Clinton says, nah, this is a humanitarian mission. It's not a profile mission. And then we had Gary Gordon getting dragged through the streets after he'd been killed because of the whole Black Hawk Down situation, because we were flying in these little birds that had no armor whatsoever. And these guys were in Humvees that had no armor whatsoever and driving literally through fatal funnels. The entire fucking study was just a giant fatal funnel because these guys were going through alleyways, all types of shit. And we had multiple birds go down because we had the wrong asset profile for that particular mission. So we lost all those American soldiers, and then we had to deal with the psychological ramification of Delta operators getting dragged through the streets after they've been killed by a bunch of... So I don't know what areas of the military spending they were planning on cutting, but Tulsi's been there. Anybody that's been in that situation understands the bullshit that these people have to do on the ground. So when you're talking about cutting the military, what are you talking about? What specifically are you talking about? Notice how they didn't tell us exactly what it was about. She voted against measures to save money on aircraft carriers, reduce funding for submarines. Where was that money going to come from? Money for submarines. Now, I don't really care about Navy guys. They know why. But still, as horrible as people in the Navy are, what was going to be cut though? I want to know. Now I will say, I'm not a fan of all these people constantly approving all this Ukraine stuff. I don't know if Tulsi voted on the Ukraine issue. I have to know. I don't believe that her foreign policy is perfect, but I do believe that her foreign policy is the best we have. And I believe if she was Secretary of State during the Obama administration, there would have been no Arab Spring, and very likely there would have been no ISIS to deal with. But again, this is all Anna not understanding what she's criticizing. And as brother Aziz says, Anna supported Liz Warren, for fuck's sake. Shout out to Liz Warren. Shout out to Liz Warren and all my indigenous people in the world. We continue.
Closing Guantanamo Bay and reducing Pentagon spending. She voted against all that, knowing full well that there's a lot of waste, with taxpayer money being funneled to private military contractors. So she was very much part of a system that has redistributed wealth from the bottom to the top.
I don't understand how you made that logical leap, sis. Saying that she doesn't want to cut aid and support for folks in the military is not talking about, reverse socialism where you're redistributing wealth from the poor to the rich. Most of the people that join the military are not part of the rich class. So I need to know exactly what they were talking about cutting. And you, Ms. Kasparian, don't seem very curious at all as to what that is. But again, you're not over there. You didn't see it. She saw it. I gave you guys one high profile. DJ can tell you, a lot of guys can tell you the bullshit dudes in the military have to go through, and women in the military, by the way. Dudes buying their own BDUs, all type of shit. We continue.
I'm not done yet though. There's a little bit more, just a little bit. In 2014.
This is odd to me, bro. Like if you see her face, she really looks like she's proving something here. Like this is mind-boggling to me, like the lack of self-awareness here. Like she really thinks she's got her. Unbelievable.
Gabbard voted against an amendment that would prohibit US combat operations in Iraq, and against an amendment that would prevent funds being used for the 2002 AUMF in Iraq. The following year, Gabbard voted against reducing the number of required aircraft carriers the Navy was required to keep, cutting nuclear missile program funding.
Here's Jimenez, Izzy Jimenez, who I'm sure Anna would probably call a right winger, but to my knowledge is one of the leftist people I know. The squad voted to raise the military budget too. Correct. Yeah, the squad did the same thing. So are they warmongers too? I mean, good night. We continue.
And a continuing resolution introduced by Representative Jim McGovern to remove US troops from Iraq and Syria. That's her record. I mean, sounds like a warmonger to me. If it talks like a warmonger, walks like a warmonger, it's definitely a warmonger. And that warmonger is throwing stones outside of her massive glass house. Then in 2016, Gabbard voted thrice, 3 times, against repealing or blocking funding for the 2001 AUMF, which is what currently gives American presidents a blank check for starting more endless wars. She's a fraud. And fact of the matter is she's also a coward, because I knew all this about her years ago. I was trying to warn the audience about her in 2019. And I was attacked viciously for it, by the way. And when she realized that I had the audacity to just read her congressional record and understand how she voted, she had her team write into TYT.
Yeah, like, this is important to remember. Like, Tulsi Gabbard is not perfect. She endorsed Joe Biden in 2020 over Bernie Sanders. And when she went on the Jimmy Dore show, she said, well, we all agreed beforehand to do that whoever won would win. That was a very weak sauce moment for me. So Tulsi Gabbard is not a perfect person. She's a politician. You know, I've had to walk my son through a lot of shit because he's really hurt, because now he's in the inner circle with these high-powered politicians, and he's seeing that these people really don't care about babies, bro. I was telling him over and over again, these Republicans don't care about babies, bro. But now he's like in there, like with these people, like these names, you know these names. And I told him, I said, listen, man, I sat next to, I interviewed presidential candidates who told us that in their state, they had a bill to abolish abortion and the pro-life Republicans killed it, not the Democrats. So my point is, anytime you have a politician, there's going to be something out there that disappoints you. You don't have to do all this shit to get at Tulsi. To be honest with you, nothing you're saying is really resonating with me. But what Rig just talked about did resonate with me. Tulsi, you supported Joe Biden. The problem is that Anna can't go after her for that because so did she. And she will again. And she told us, I'm done with the Democrats. I'm done with the Democrats. Y'all remember that whole thing because of Roe v. Wade decision? So, I mean, we continue.
As we were quickly approaching an interview that Cenk and I were supposed to do with her, to let us know that she would not be doing the interview unless I was excluded from it, because she's a freaking coward who can't even stand by her own goddamn record.
Well, I mean, if she produces the email, she produces the email. I mean, you know, some of these politicians, it's odd. Like that whole situation with Bernie Sanders on, he was talking to Crystal, but he wouldn't talk to Sager, so only she could do the interview, and she did the interview without him. I guess in this situation, Cenk was like, then we're not doing it, which is, shout out to Cenk for that. I will say, like, Cenk is loyal to his folks, man. Like, he rode with Anna. Like, Anna, I'm not going to relitigate the situation, but she was mega dead wrong on an issue. She was caught dead to rights, yada, yada, yada. And Cenk stood, like, right by her side, like, true blue. Like, he was on some gang shit. You know, it's like you growing up in the hood. Like, whether or not your friend is right or wrong, you're going to roll with them, period. So shout out to Cenk for that. But so if that's true, I mean, I have a hard time believing that Tulsi Gabbard is afraid of anybody. She's seen war. I have a hard time believing that she's afraid of Anna Kasparian after being in a war zone. But I mean, look, it's possible. I mean, this has happened with me a bunch of times. I've challenged people to a moderated debate on abortion, and you guys see how that shit works out. They don't want to do it. So, you know, maybe debating is not Tulsi's thing. I don't know. Although she looked pretty solid when she went after Kamala. So I have no idea, you know, the truth. You know, I'm supposed to say, oh, Anna's lying. She could be telling the truth. I don't know. It's hearsay. I don't know Anna Kasparian to be a giant liar, although I do believe she lied on Jimmy Dore. But as far as like the rest of her output, I don't believe that she's a liar. So, I mean, if she put that out there, then she put it out there. And I'm ambivalent. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. We continue.
Let's hear more from the liar.
Who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are
When is the brave Anna going to interview Aaron Mate? Yeah, I would love that. Anna, since Tulsi is more important than you and doesn't have time to sit down and interview with you and Jen, what about Aaron Mate? Aaron Mate is a journalist. He's on your level, right? You and Aaron Mate should have a back and forth about Syria, for example, the white helmet stuff. How come? Does that mean you're an effing coward? I don't know. Let's see. We continue.
Hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans.
God-given freedoms? So what about the people who don't believe in God in a country that has a separation of church and state? And what about the fact from the liar?
Who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans.
Well, I don't think that anybody on the left needs to demonize the police. All you have to do is play videos. Tulsi, you got police officers. I mean, hell, they did this to a white boy. The white boy survived, bless God. That kid was in a parking lot eating a burger, and the cop went up to him, pulled out his weapon, shot at him. I don't have to talk about Tamir Rice. I don't have to talk about George Floyd, all the rest of this. This is ridiculous notion that this is kind of like, this reaction about the police is kind of like the trans community's reaction to libs of TikTok. I'm like, why are you so concerned about the people that are highlighting the situation instead of the people who are doing the situation itself? If you have a fucking 55-year-old man in nothing but his tighty-whitey shaking his ass in front of a 5-year-old, you should be angry at the 50-year-old man doing that in front of the 5-year-old, not the person posting the video. So if Anna or anybody else on the left or the right says, hey, this cop is shooting at unarmed people, this guy is completely unhinged, these people are racist, look, this entire department in LA got shut down because they were ran by neo-Nazis. Literally, the FBI said that our police forces at every level were infiltrated with neo-Nazis and that they were using that as a tactic to foment their civil war. That's all. Is the FBI also taking part in demonizing the police? Ridiculous argument. Tulsi at the demons and not the people demonizing demons. Nobody's putting out videos talking about fuck the fire department. I saw that meme a couple years ago. But she is right. I mean, the new left or progressives, they're absolutely hostile to people of faith. As a person of faith, I can tell you that's true. We continue.
Do with her to let us know that she would not be doing the interview unless I was excluded from it because she's a freaking coward who can't even stand by her own. Okay,
I wouldn't laugh at this, but the kid survived, so I'm gonna laugh. They shot that white boy to get up their diversity quota. They saw a cop shoot a kid eating a burger. And like I said, I'm a pacifist, but I pray every day. The scripture says, lead us not into temptation. I pray every day. I say, Lord, don't let one of them people lose on my mind and do some crazy shit to my son, because I promise you, we're not going to court, bro. We continue.
Own goddamn record. Let's hear more from the liar.
Who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans.
God-given freedoms?
Uh-huh.
So what about the people who don't believe in God in a country that has a separation of church and state?
Well, there's no such phrase as separation of church and state in the Constitution, Anna. And she didn't say, fuck all atheists. What she said is that we have God-given rights and that there's an element in this country that are hostile to people of faith, and you are one of them. She can say that she believes our rights are God-given. Do you know who else? Do you know who else believed our rights were God-given, Anna? The framers of the Constitution. How do you know? Well, because in the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed with inalienable rights given to them by their creator. The entire concept of rights, Anna. See, this is one of the things, if you're a secularist, you got to do some work on this. Dear listener, the concept of rights is not a uniquely axiomatically obvious thing. As a matter of fact, rights are something that are completely contrary to our basic nature. Our basic nature is to take things that we want, is to impose ourselves on other people's property, etc., 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 to use our strength to our own advantages to get what we want. That's what's natural to human beings. And if you look at the warp and woof of human history, you can see that oppression has been the rule. It was this concept, at least in the minds of the framers. If the state gives you your rights, then the state can take them away. If God gives you your rights, then the state cannot take them away. And that was their justification for going to war over taxes, Anna. Those are facts. Stop trying to rewrite history. The founding fathers were not evangelical Christians, and they were also not rabid secularists like you. They weren't. There's a whole mismatch of those people. But the concept that your rights are given to you by God is a philosophical argument. You need to find a way to maintain inherent rights without a third-party arbiter. That's your task. But a lot of secularists, you guys just assume that your way of life is just the default, the natural state of human beings. And a lot of secularists, I've noticed, don't believe that they have to justify their presuppositions. Oh, yes, you do. You need to justify your presuppositions. Why do we have rights? Where do rights come from? Why should they be honored and respected? Do you believe, like, for example, Anna doesn't believe in equal rights for all humans. And listen, I love all of you, but anybody who is pro-choice does not believe in equal rights for all human beings. That's just a fact. I'm not arguing. That's an observation. It's not even an argument. An argument should be, therefore you're wrong because all human beings are equal. But it is indisputable that anybody who believes in the practice of abortion, that it should continue or that people should have the option to kill their children, obviously does not believe that all human beings are equal then. So that's one example, Anna, of how a secularist understanding of rights could have horrific consequences. We know that there are bad consequences to a terrible theistic worldview, but there are equally bad and even worse consequences to a secularist worldview. Go see communist Russia and their forced secularization program. This is a thing that gets me. Like, she's completely triggered the minute a person says faith. We have "In God We Trust" in our dollar bill. The term Christian duty is in the Virginia Constitution, which is where the Establishment Clause was taken from. The Establishment Clause, I'm sure Anna knows this, was actually just a lifted summary of what you see in the Virginia Constitution. And the Establishment Clause has nothing to do with secularism. It actually has to do with a Protestant Catholic debate about the freedom of conscience. But I'm sure Anna knows about that because she's not just triggered by a person using religious language. We continue.
And what about the fact that we're currently grappling with a rise of Christian nationalism in this country, a rise in individuals who don't respect our First Amendment, which specifically states Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof.
Prohibiting the free exercise thereof, which means that if a senator or a congresswoman or a president wants to say something about God, the First Amendment makes it so that that's a protected form of speech. Anna, the Establishment Clause is not designed to get religion out of our country. It is designed so that we don't end up with another Bloody Mary situation where you have to swear that you believe in transubstantiation or they'll set you on fire until you die in front of your children. Anna, those aren't the same thing. We continue.
About that. And while she is going after Democrats for doing away with our freedoms, after Republicans successfully stripped women of their bodily autonomy.
Oh, here it is. The Republicans stripped women of their bodily autonomy because they said that the Roe v. Wade decision should be decided by the states. What a ridiculous argument. And secondly, for anybody that wants to bring up the bodily autonomy argument, dear listener, 98% of our laws restrict what you can do with your body. If Anna believes, see, Anna's one of these people that are like, we've got a giant crime wave. The police need to jump in there. Anna, do you believe that those criminals should be in prison? Do you think that the criminals that are locked up in prison are giving their consent to be put in a cage? Or do you believe that the government does have the right, has a prevailing interest in limiting what people can do with their bodies when it results in the harm of another Homo sapien? We continue.
You should also keep in mind that you have Republicans openly stating that they don't respect the Constitution and they certainly don't respect separation of church and state.
Well, I don't respect the separation of church and state because that's not in the Constitution. They're allowed to be Christian nationalists. I know some of these people that are in the front. I'm not a fan of those people, to be honest with you. But I don't understand what, I mean, you know, you're a secular nationalist, Anna. Why should your prevailing philosophy dominate this country? As I said, the founding fathers weren't evangelicals, but they certainly weren't secularists like you. So why should your philosophy get to dominate the country? Oh, wait a second. We have free speech, so we can debate these things in the public square, and then people can come along with their own decisions. Correct. That's how shit's supposed to work. We continue.
Want to force their religious beliefs on everyone in the country. Don't believe me?
Worth noting that the Establishment Clause only applied to the federal government. Individual states could and did, in fact, officially endorse denominations. As I said, the Virginia Constitution explicitly states our Christian duty to God and to one another. It's as I said, the Establishment Clause was simply lifted from, many people believe, and I do, that the Establishment Clause was lifted from that article in the Virginia Constitution, and that was relative to freedom of conscience. That was a Protestant Catholic debate. It had nothing to do with secularists in the first place. We continue.
We've got some evidence on that too. Let's watch.
The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. And I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk.
Again, there is no separation of church and state. It's a fabrication. It's a fiction. It's not in the Constitution.
It's true.
But Democrats.
The Establishment Clause does not mention church and state. It doesn't. So letter mentioned it, but that letter did not make it into the Constitution. And I do think that that's a very, very powerful point. That verbiage was out there. It was out there, but it didn't make it into the Constitution. Why not, Anna? Anna's mad because this Loesch person said that the government shouldn't be directing the church, but the church should be directing the government. It depends on what you mean by what that means. Dr. King said it was the role of the church to be the constant prophetic conscience of a people. Martin Luther King, I don't know if you know this or not, Anna, but it wasn't secularists who were at the forefront of the civil rights movement. It also wasn't secularists who were at the forefront of the abolitionist movement relative to slavery. As a matter of fact, it was the secularists that were coming up with the scientific racist science to justify treating us like animals. Now, I'm not going to say their secularism caused that, but there's nothing in secularism to stop that because, again, rights come from the state from a secularist worldview, not from God. Therefore, the state can give and the state can take away. And in that context, who makes up the state? Well, the majority race or the majority group in power is always going to have the control of the state. See how that works? And so you had people enslaved with no hope of getting out. It wasn't until madmen like Nat Turner and John Brown, who claimed they got visions from God and started killing folk, that these things changed. Anna?
Are the problem, right? It's the Democrats. Democrats are the ones that are doing away with people's freedom. Just yesterday, Congresswoman Marjorie Greene talked about how we are in the best position to reverse same-sex marriage in this country.
Now, she's right. She's right there. Now, I know Tulsi is a little kind of iffy on, she was supporting the, you know, where your kid's gay or whatever, so you send him to some camp like he's got, you know, the plague and shit, and then, you know, you do all this psycho torture him, the kid comes back, now he's straight, all type of shit. She was supporting that. I supported that years ago. Well, yeah, that was great. Blah, 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 blah. I didn't know anything. I didn't have any gay friends. And to be honest with you, I was not compassionate to the LGBT community. Then I got around some LGBT people. Then I heard their stories. Then I saw them. Then I heard the story about my friend Mikkel, who tried as he might, couldn't stop being gay. So he decided he was going to go into his garage and kill himself. And if his friend didn't find him in 2 minutes, he would have been out of this world. He's since alive. He's got a healthy boy. Shout out to Mikkel. So I don't know what Tulsi's position on that is, but that is something near and dear to my heart. And if you're pro-life, there is an absolute connection between LGBT marriage and the pro-life cause, because a lot of these people who want to get married also want to have a family. And yeah, surrogacy is a lane, but a lot of these LGBT families are actually choosing to adopt. They're actually taking kids out of these horrible situations and bringing them to a family. And is it the ideal family? No, it's not. I've said that a million times. I just had my daughter in here, but she's my stepdaughter. That happened because of a divorce. That's not ideal. I don't want that for my children. I don't want them to get divorced and then remarried. I don't want that. In an ideal world, they would be with mom and dad till they die. That's the ideal world. But we're not in the ideal world. So I cannot tell you how happy I am to see an LGBT family adopting a kid, getting that kid out of the orphanage. That's pro-life. Whether or not you agree that union is blessed by God, I don't. But aside from that, what are the other consequences? And as a Christian who loves life and loves people, okay, they've made that decision. They're going to get married, whatever. That's between them and Allah. But hey, these people are more likely to adopt. So let them get married. This is great. Nope. Right after Roe v. Wade, there was a vote, and a significant amount of Republicans did vote against codifying same-sex marriage, and that is a fucking problem. I'm sorry, it's a problem. In my view. I don't know if Tulsi responds. I don't know if Tulsi has updated her position. I don't have a problem with telling you guys where my position is. I've never pretended to be a perfect person. I never pretended to be as, up on shit. I've learned way more from you guys than you guys have learned from me in these discussions. So I don't know where Tulsi's on with that, but I do agree that that's problematic. And I do believe that if she supported these I keep saying gender reassignment. It's not gender reassignment. These gay camps or whatever, where you're trying to, torture these kids into not being gay, she should come out with a complete and total repudiation of that. I can't tell you. I'm not going to talk about it anymore because it's going to get me emotional. You guys know I'm a baby. It's just horrible to do that to a kid, man. Just horrible to do that to your own flesh and blood, especially when the scripture says any man who sins sexually sins against his own body. But a greedy person sins against the most vulnerable people. I've said this over and over again. God has never destroyed a country because people were gay and got married and adopted kids. But he's fucked up many a country for mistreating the poor, mistreating the widow, and mistreating the sojourner, a.k.a. the immigrant. So I do want to hear Tulsi talk about that. We continue.
How's that for freedom? But Tulsi Gabbard loves it. Because if you look at her past, she's also anti-gay marriage. I mean,
yeah, it's called conversion therapy. It's called conversion therapy. And I don't like that word therapy because I believe in therapy. I've benefited much from therapy. But yeah, it's conversion torture is what I'll call it. But yeah, conversion therapy. And I know, Emily, that I'm going to go ahead and bet you're against that bullshit too. We continue.
This is who she's been. And this attempt to rebrand herself as a Republican is hilarious because
she never said she was a Republican. She's currently branded herself as as an independent.
Been a right winger. It's just, unfortunately, some people fell for this charade that she was engaged in. Final part of her video that I found so laughable had to do with corruption, actually. So let's watch that.
I believe in a government that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite.
Now, she's right that the Democratic Party, corporate Democrats in particular, are taking campaign donations from corporatists, from individuals who have destroyed our economic system and have fueled the inequality that we're seeing in this country right now. That's why Democrats, one of their biggest mistakes was moving further and further away from average working Americans. They used to represent blue collar workers.
I don't know if she's right, but I can tell you that my mom, who was like everything to me, she was a big Bill Clinton fan. She talked about this, the common man. There was, I forgot the guy's name, Bruce Springsteen, like the hard hat, lunch pail to work, hardworking dude, simple guy type shit. If you go back and look at the speeches that Bill Clinton did, and when he was campaigning, as well as his State of the Union addresses, he sounds like what people today would call a hard right Republican. But that's neither here nor there. But I do believe whether I was wrong I was a child, I was like 6-7 years old when that was happening. So whether I was wrong to perceive it, that's how I did perceive it, as the Democrats were the party of like the common man, the worker at the factory, and the Republicans were like, they didn't really care about anybody, and they were just, the Bushes and rich and all the rest of it. That was my perception. We continue.
They used to represent workers in general in this country. But the FDR days are over for the Democratic Party, and that's a huge mistake. So I will grant her that point. But to make that point while completely ignoring the reality of corruption among Republicans is hilarious.
Again, and M brought that. I'm going to say what this is what liberals do. It pisses me off. Label anyone questioning their hypocrisy and complacency as right wing. Correct. Anna, why is it okay for you to say, I'm done with the Democrats, blah, blah, blah. The Democrats are losers. They lied to us. They don't take care of us, blah, blah, blah. All the shit you were saying about Biden. I was just watching, you guys got to check out that Dame Pesos guy. He's funny as hell, bro. He does these things where he makes fun of TYT when they melt down. If you're in the mood for some Schadenfreude, you should check that shit out. But she was saying all types of crazy shit about the Democratic Party, about Biden. None of us said, oh, that means you're supporting Republicans. Ridiculous. That tells me that you're still in this duopolist mindset relative to politics, Anna. But you guys are supposed to be progressive, leading us away from the establishment. So I don't understand, like, you got to make up your mind. Are you pro-establishment or not? She just left the Democratic Party. She didn't say anything at this point. There's 4 minutes left in this video. She didn't say anything about joining the Republicans yet. She's talking about the Democrats because that's her party. It's the same thing. Like, I did a rap song. People were like, how come you only went after AOC and Bernie and all of these people? Because those are the only people I believed in. I don't believe the Republicans are on my team. Now, I did say if you're not med for all, then you're not pro-life. I did say that. But as far as like naming specific politicians, yeah, I named Tulsi and Bernie. I named AOC and Bernie because I believed in them. I was the most disappointed by them. Those are the people I was going to vote for. I was going to vote blue for the first time in my life. Okay, so when I wrote the song, I was heard about those people. Those are the people I had exceptions for. I had expectations. I don't have any expectations of Republicans, so I'm not going to make a song about them. They are who they are. So I don't understand why she keeps going back to this idea that because Tulsi is saying she's done with the Democrats, that means now she's a Republican. That doesn't make sense to me.
Anyone really think that Republicans are the party by the people for the people? Really? I know they're using all this phony surface level populist lingo, but why don't we take a look at who funds them?
You like that, huh? Europe can't buy from Russia, so gas payments go to Exxon to Chevron. Make cash. Make sense? I was pretty impressed with that line myself. I'm not going to lie. Look at Anna's face. I'm going to use Anna's face as a screen cap right here because I'll tell you what, it's a little bit cringy. It takes a lot to make me cringe. It is a little bit cringy to see her like so self-satisfied when literally every point she's made really is not as damning as she thinks it is. It is kind of cringy. I'm not going to lie. We continue.
Let's start with the 2020 election, the last major general election. Man, Republican billionaires got real active. Sheldon Adelson, who fortunately died in January of 2021.
He fortunately died. Oh my gosh, man. You know, me and Applejack talk about this, like dissing your dead ops. Your ops are your opposition to people you're against, and like, you know, back in the day when somebody would die, everybody like, all right, rest in peace, blah blah blah. Now when people die, dudes out here making songs, fuck your dead homie, blah 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 blah, smoking on this, blah 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 blah. So now Anna out here talking about, fortunately this man is dead. Stay classy, Anna. We continue.
Broke his own spending records, doling out $120 million to GOP.
Whoa. I did not see this. AOC booted those immigrants out of her district after crocodile tears at the cages. I need to see that. She did not do that. My AOC did not do that. I think I'm the only person left that still believes in AOC or believes that she's salvageable. Let me rewind that part a little bit here.
Real active. Sheldon Adelson, who fortunately died in January of 2021, broke his own spending records, doling out $120 million to GOP. That means Republican congressional super PACs, $90 million to a pro-Trump super PAC, and about another $8 million to other conservative causes and candidates. That's interesting. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, from what I've read about her, is actually very familiar with Sheldon Adelson. Here's a tweet from Rabbi Shmuley with Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii.
Shout out to Shmuley Boteach. That's Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. If anybody knows, he's a really cool dude. I love him.
And Miriam Adelson at our gala dinner last Thursday. Yeah, she loved to, get real cozy with these individuals.
Yeah, he's a politician and she needs money, and so those are the things that you have to do. Anna, I don't see what the problem is, but let's keep watching.
That was a tweet from May 9th of 2016. We've got more. Hedge fund heavyweight Ken Griffin, a Mitt Romney supporter in 2012, didn't donate directly to Donald Trump's campaign in 2016 or 2020. Instead, he focused on Congress, dumping $37 million into a super PAC supporting Senate Republicans and another $10 million to a group backing House Republicans over the last 2 years. Wow, that really seems like a party by the people and for the people. There's more. Of course there's more. There's so much more. The richest man in private equity, Steven Schwartzman, put $35 million into a super PAC called the Senate Leadership Fund supporting Republican senators. He also gave $2 million to a group supporting one particular Republican senator, Susan Collins of Maine. Former President Trump also got some love, with committees that support him receiving $3.7 million. And I can't help myself, I just wanna make sure you guys get the receipts, right? Because I'm just a dumb girl who doesn't know what I'm talking about. I have to be dogpiled for months and months and months until.
Nobody said you were dumb, Anna. I don't think she's dumb. I didn't say you were dumb. Who's saying you're dumb? I disagree with you. I think it's a real issue in this country where, and Anna's done it a million times, where if you disagree with somebody, all of a sudden they're an idiot. So Trump's an idiot, Biden's an idiot, everybody's an idiot who disagrees with you. Even though these people have accomplished things that I mean, TYT has over 20 billion views. I just looked. Lifetime, our major channel has 83 million views. We don't even have 1% of the amount of views that these people have. We only have 83 million views in total. So Anna's a hard worker. She's a decent debater. I don't think she's dumb. I think she's I think she's more mentally acute than Cenk. I think Cenk's a great salesperson, but I think Cenk's debate with Ben Shapiro indicated that that's not his strong suit. Anna is much better at debating than Cenk is. I don't think you're dumb, Anna, but the reason you were dogpiled is because you went after Tulsi Gabbard, and most of us are tired of these regime change wars, Anna. We're exhausted, especially if you love people over there. That shit is exhausting, worrying about your friends, worrying about your loved ones. So that's probably why people went after you, but I don't know about dumb. I mean, like I said, I don't know her experience. Maybe people were calling her dumb, but I don't think you're dumb, man. I just think you're a little bit, you're ignorant. Literally, there's none of these points really landed. The Christian nationalism stuff, maybe the LGBT stuff, definitely. But the main thesis here is, I don't understand why she's acting as if there's some giant victory here when anyway.
People realize what I'm talking about is actually based on evidence that I present on the show. But let me give you one more piece of evidence. Georgia mega donor Bernard Marcus donated $10 million to a super PAC that ran a slew of anti-Biden ads in the run-up to the election and put 5.8 million.
You were running anti-Biden ads. Your guys' entire show was an anti-Biden show until he got the nomination, and then you, just like Tulsi, went and endorsed Biden and told us all to vote. What are you talking about? This is the thing that gets me. It's like, do you not remember a year or two ago? Like, you guys were supporting all these people too. What are you talking about? And again, I don't understand what the argument is here. So he did a bunch of anti-Biden ads. How does that relate to Tulsi?
Dollars toward a super PAC focused on GOP Senate races. Marcus's co-founder from Home Depot, Arthur Blank, supported Biden in 2020, but Marcus spent more than 30 times as much money on Trump as Blank did on Biden.
And
there's plenty of corruption to go around. To erase the bad behavior or provide cover for the bad behavior of right-wing politicians while attacking.
She did not say that, Anna. She said that the party that she was in, that she believed in, is no longer the party she can continue in. That is not saying anything about the Republicans. I'm sorry. You're completely off here. I'm sorry. You're wrong. Tulsi was worse than TYT. Bernie was still in the race when Tulsi endorsed Biden. Nah, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. That's just, TYT has way more influence on what people are going to do voting wise than Tulsi Gabbard's endorsement. I'm sorry. I just disagree with you there. She's not worse than TYT. I think TYT is great in some areas, but in this area, I just think they need to figure out who they are. They're like doing all this Starbucks stuff about unions, but Cenk is a giant union buster. Everybody knows what they did when TYT tried to unionize. So it's that's my problem with TYT. It's like the lack of self-awareness. Like, why are you guys talking about unions, for example, when you destroyed unions, stuff like that? But anyway, we continue.
Democrats makes it clear that homegirl's got an agenda. But what I want you guys to understand is this agenda is not new. It's been here for a while now.
Okay. So because Tulsi doesn't say the things that I'm complaining about on the party that I'm in, I also have to talk about the Republicans. That means that she's part of some Republican conspiracy. Like, is this the entire video? Because there's only 48 seconds left. Did she announce that she was going into the Republican Party?
And rather than immediately having a knee-jerk negative reaction to someone who's trying to warn you about who someone really is, especially a politician who's seeking power, maybe take a look at the evidence that's presented and make a judgment call instead of getting offended that your preconceived notions have been challenged.
Well, you didn't offend me, sis. I mean, I'm not offended. The vast majority of your complaints were either a logical fallacy, like this last one was a guilt by association fallacy. Your earlier argument was a genetic fallacy. And then on top of that, you committed the either or logical fallacy when Tulsi was talking about the drone situation. The same applies for the war. Like, literally, it was all logical fallacies and ignorance. Like, I'm not dissing. It's not a diss. I'm telling you objectively, that's what happened, Anna. You don't demonstrate that you know the difference between asymmetric warfare and occupational warfare. There's no demonstration of an understanding of that. There's no demonstration of an understanding of ROE relative to the drone strikes and the proper and the improper use of drone strikes in our military doctrine since 2001. There's just a lot of shit that you're commenting on that you don't know about. And so I'm not offended at all. It's just your elements of evidence are they're weak.
That's all I ask.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really
okay. All right. Okay. So that's it. So there's nothing in the video that said that she. There's nothing in the video where Tulsi said that she was going to be a Republican. And if we're looking at the here is, check this out, guys. Here is a man by the name of what's his last? Jeffrey Katzenberg. I'm going to read you now. Granted, this is his Wikipedia page, and I'm going to tell you right now, Wikipedia is not an objective source of truth. So if I was an actual moderated debate, I would never use Wikipedia. But here's Wikipedia. Here's Jeffrey Katzenberg's Wikipedia page, which is really, really fascinating. Here we go. That's Jeffrey Katzenberg with Obama. He's getting him the National Medal of the Arts. Katzenberg is a longtime supporter of Barack Obama, reportedly smitten by Obama's speech, tenacious support and advocacy since we started back in 2007. He was an avid fundraiser for Obama. He co-hosted a fundraiser for President Obama with George Clooney, yada, yada, yada. Jennifer Rubin noted the Obama administration's potential involvement in the deal would not be an issue if not for Katzenberg's May fundraiser for Obama and his huge campaign donations. It was reported that Katzenberg was Obama's top bundler, who along with Andy Spahn had collected at least $6.6 million in combined donations for both of Obama's campaigns. In an MSNBC interview about the donation, Nicholas Confessor noted Katzenberg's desire to build more studios in China, saying he would need help from the Obama administration to get this done, and that everyone has interest at stake. So he wanted to move into China, and he needed the president to help him close that deal, but he just so happened to have fundraised about $6 million for Mr. Obama. Okay, all right. It was reported that Obama arrived in Los Angeles on October 7th, 2012, where he joined Bill Clinton at Katzenberg's Beverly Hills home for a private meeting with several deep-pocketed Democratic donors. Obama's campaign indicated the meeting was to thank supporters, but some members of the campaign finance committee said that it involved the pro-Obama PAC priorities, USA Action, members of the White House press corps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He was also investigated by the SEC, launched an investigation in April 2012, an accusation that Katzenberg had bribed Chinese officials in an effort to obtain distribution rights as Joe Biden was negotiating a deal to increase film quotas. So it just so happened that this guy who spent millions of dollars on Obama, who had a secret meeting, him, Bill Clinton, Mr. Katzenberg, they all had a meeting over at Obama's crib, very secluded meeting with very, very rich people. And this guy Katzenberg, he wanted to get into the Chinese area and such, and so he already got stung by the SEC. But Mr. Biden just happened to be on. Isn't that strange? That whole Burisma situation, Biden was on top of it. Now we're in the middle of this China situation, negotiating a deal for Mr. Katzenberg. Now, why am I talking so much about Jeffrey Katzenberg? Because Anna's last point was about corruption was about Tulsi's corruption. You guys remember that, right? It's Tulsi's corruption. And Tulsi was corrupt not because she took the money. Because none of the articles that she read said Tulsi took the money. Tulsi was just bad because she was around the people. There was one where she was in the snapshot hugging one of the people that was a bad person. Okay, all right. Why did I just talk to you guys about Jeffrey Katzenberg? Here's why. And again, this is just mind-boggling to me. Here's Jenk's beautiful mug. There you go, Cenk Uygur. Jeffrey Katzenberg's Winderco invests in TYT Network as part of a $20 million round. $20 million Mr. Katzenberg gave to your program. Now listen, as it stands right now, it is what it is. Politicians take people's money. Okay, you in order to get commercials and spots and all that shit, you need money. That's just a fact. But why is TYT taking $20 million? I would argue that it is worse for TYT to take $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg than it would be for Tulsi to take $1 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg. You guys are supposed to be the media. You guys are supposed to be the ones. You're the fourth estate. You're supposed to hold the government accountable. Why do we need the media to hold the government accountable? Because all of us assume that when you combine all the power and money that a successful politician in America has, that he's going to do some corrupt shit. And so the media is there to inform the public. You know, I used to get in all these little fights with my little brother, and sometimes I would go overboard and I'd give him an eye jam. He says, "I'm telling mommy on you." And you'd be like, yo, chill. I'll do your chores for a week. The role of the media is to say, I'm telling the American people on you. So when the media takes $20 million from nefarious political actors, it's worse. Because you guys were supposed to be the backstop. For Anna to talk about that, to condemn Tulsi Gabbard for taking a picture with a millionaire, but then look in the camera with a straight face and pretend that you guys didn't take $20 million from a establishment of the establishment Democrat is just mind-boggling to me. It's absolutely mind-boggling. It's Herschel Walker level hypocrisy, Herschel Walker level, I have no self-awareness as to how I'm coming off. You guys took $20 million from Mr. Katzenberg. And I got to tell you, at some level, it provides explanatory power to why you guys were dead set against Joe Biden, You yelled into the camera. Cenk was saying that Joe Biden was senile. He was saying that Joe Biden had stolen valor. He was a horrible character person. And then as soon as Bernie surrendered, Cenk immediately, I'm talking about not even 24 hours, he was on with Crystal when they were still on the Hill. And Crystal was like, I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm going to vote for Biden. Crystal didn't even get the words out of her mouth before Cenk said, no, we have to vote for Biden. It makes me say, Or when Anna said, I'm done with the Democrats, I'm done with the losers, and she was yelling and shit into the camera because Roe v. Wade. And the next day she's like, I'm not really done with it. It makes me wonder, like, oh, did Katzenberg pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, you guys went overboard here? Because there's an obvious connection between Biden, Katzenberg, and Obama and TYT, right? When he was in that secret meeting with Obama and Clinton, Katzenberg, the same guy that funded you guys, you don't think Biden was there? Biden was the one that was running interference in China for Katzenberg. This man went on TV and said that Obama needs to help him so he can get into the Chinese market. And then sure enough, like a good soldier, there's Joe Biden out there working with the Chinese to get that done. Why does that keep happening with that administration, bro? You got your son over there in Ukraine on some gas bore getting 50 grand a week or a month or whatever it is when he has no expertise in that area. And then Mr. Biden flew over there to get the prosecutor fired. We all know that situation, so to protect his son. Why is Biden and them boys always in the middle of this shit? Roe v. Wade was codified before it was overturned, but just like the Republicans, the Democrats don't care about that situation, bro. The Democrats never wanted to codify Roe v. Wade because if they codified it, they would never be able to terrify people into voting in the same way that the Republicans would never codify a permanent abortion ban for the same reason. You need that to kind of get your gullible political folks to do that. No offense, Vin, but I think the Andrew Tate versus Pierce Morgan debate about misogyny would have been way more interesting than watching Anna do her divisive bullshit. Well, you know, I'm not against doing that. This Andrew Tate guy, I'm not really familiar with him, but, you know, he's made a splash. My friend DJ's in love with Andrew Tate, and usually if DJ's in love with somebody, I don't like them. So, I don't know. We'll see. Okay. I agree with Ozzy here. Forced to vote, I will say, forced to vote made everything very clear. Like, you know, there's a concept in Islam, it's called al-Furqan. And it's about separating things and making things very, very clear. So, yeah, that was an al-Furqan moment for sure. For sure, the forced to vote thing. And I'll also say the lying is what killed me about forced to vote. You could have been wrong about forced to vote. You could say, I didn't think it was right. I wasn't informed enough. Like I said about my LGBT friends, I didn't have enough information, so I was going off of ignorance. You could say I was against forced to vote, but I was completely wrong. Here's why. But they'll never do that. That's the thing that gets me about TYT. They'll never admit when they're wrong. And you guys have been on since, I don't know, 2010 or something like that. You guys should know, like, you're going to get some things wrong, and it's okay. I've been wrong a bunch of times. I go out and I shoot a video, and nobody goes crazy. Nobody, as a matter of fact, most of the time when I do that, people are like, yo, I respect that. People will respect you if you do that. But that was my problem with the forced to vote thing relative to TYT, is that they won't admit that they're wrong. You know, that story came out with the 10-year-old girl with the abortion thing, and there was a lot of spurious things around it because we didn't have all the information. I shot like a 45-minute video, and I'm like, yo, this shit is a fraud, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day, sure enough, it was real. I went back and shot a video. I'm not going to correct it on Twitter. I'm not going to correct it on, you know, Facebook. I shot a fucking video. So I had to shoot another video and say, hey, I was wrong here. Here's the information. Here's what we know so far, yada, yada, yada. It was fine. Nobody went after me. People were like, okay, I don't agree with you on abortion, but I respect you here. Okay, much respect to you on that, blah, 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 blah. Okay, nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're wrong, you're wrong. It's okay. Your audience doesn't expect you to be perfect, but they do expect you to be honest. And I think that's the problem. That's why people, quote, dogpile on you, Anna, is because you're not perceived as an honest actor. You're perceived as somebody who's spoiled, entitled, who's sold out to the people that you speak against. You're eating out of the hand that you're supposedly trying to bite. But the minute you take that $20 million, bro, you guys can't say anything. You can't say anything about any of that shit. I sent you the audio of counsel. Oh yeah, Martinez. Yeah, the racist. Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's no racism among progressives. There's no racism among the left at all. It's all them dumb old black folks from Montana. They're the racists. All the cool people from fucking LA and shit. Ain't no racism there, bro. All the racists on the right. It's only white people on the right that are racist. Y'all dumb as hell. I was in New York City, and I was the only black people them Latin people could tolerate. And the reason they liked me was because they used to call me Jamaica. Hey, yo, Jamaica, because I was from Jamaica. It's kind of like a Caribbean kind of, you know what I'm saying? So I got a pass, and you know, you guys know my personality. How can you not like me? So they like me, but yeah, them Latin boys, everybody else, man, forget it. Forget it. Hell yeah, there's racism out there, boy. Shout out to all my progressives, though. Shout out to all my progressives out there. Yeah, if you think racism is only a Republican pastime, you out of your fucking mind. Holy shit, I sent you a link of AOC booting out immigrants out of her district. I gotta see that shit. I'm sorry, guys. We might have to do a double episode of Middle America. I'm sorry. I know that I put the title up there, but if AOC really did that shit, we're gonna cover that, and it's gonna get its own fucking thing, because this is some shit right here. AOC kicked out immigrants? No, bro. No. All right. I'm going to download this video, and I'm sorry. Hey, it's only 4 minutes, so I'm going to comment on it. Granted, it's a Fox News thing, so take that with a grain of salt, but we got to cover this shit, y'all. AOC? Really? All right, let's see. Let's see, guys. Let's see if AOC did that. I'm sorry, guys. We're going to do a bonus. It's a little bit long-winded, but, you know. Did you get the question I posted tonight in chat? Send it to me again, por favor. Hey, St. Petersburg, Florida. Shout out to St. Petersburg, Florida. Everybody drop your low. Tell me where you guys are from. Tell me where you guys are from. I want to know. I'm from Maine. I'm from a lot of places. Currently, I'm in Maine. Let's everybody drop where you guys are from. I want to get to know you guys a little bit better. My man Tasco just put us in a bad situation. All right, guys, here we go. Here's AOC. Hey, Rig is from Northern VA. Shout out to Rig. Tulsi, Oklahoma. Very well played. Chamberlain, very well played. Ian, LA. I like this. I'm liking this. Nigga, New York City. Chirac, and now Ohio. There you go. That Chirac shit is for the birds, bro. Death Proof from Louisiana. Shout out to Death Proof.
It's quite obvious that Democrats love the idea.
All right, here we go. This is about AOC and migrant things. Let's check it out.
Well, I think it's quite obvious that Democrats love the idea of illegal immigrants. They love the idea of them being in the shadows. But then when they're actually confronted with it and they have to explain it to their constituents why their shelters and their cities and their communities are being overrun, then suddenly they want to make the problem go away.
Strong words there from Fox News host Tommy Lahren calling out Democrats for their stance on the border. She called out the left for loving the idea of illegal immigrants until they're actually confronted with a crisis on their doorstep. This comes after the fact that New York City Mayor Eric Adams had planned to set up a migrant centre in a Bronx district to accommodate an influx of illegal immigrants in the area. The district was the one in which the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez represents. But when confronted with that problem-solving idea, AOC said that she thought there was a better solution available.
I agree with them. There is a humanitarian crisis going on, and a lot of it's going on at our southern border where these migrants, these illegal immigrants are coming in. So maybe we are getting to the point, and I don't want to be overly optimistic, but maybe we are getting to the point where Democrats are finally going to start looking at the Biden administration, and they're going to say, we need an actual solution because we're being inundated, we are being overrun, the border cities and states are being inundated, and now these sanctuary cities are being inundated. Everything sounds good on paper and in a tweet until you have to deal with it in real life. AOC is finding that out. These Democrat mayors are finding it out. And I hope to goodness pretty soon the Biden administration is going to find that one out too. Maybe it'll be November, but we're hoping for a soon realization.
Now, AOC's comments about finding...
Okay, where, I want to see her comments though. Where are her comments?
A better solution has not gone down well for her. She has been an avid fighter for immigrant rights. Some social media users were angry over the comments. One person attached this photo and tweeted, AOC is upset because a tent city is being built in her district to house illegals. Not in my district. Wasn't she the one crying at the border about how migrants are being treated? Another wrote, Mayor Adams will move tents for illegal aliens from Bronx after AOC throws a fit, copying her wealthy friends in Martha's Vineyard. As soon as the illegal aliens appear in public, out from the shadows, the Democratic Party shows its true racist and elitist colours. Suddenly unwoke, AOC wants tent city for illegal aliens.
Whoa. I don't, wait, what did you just say? Hold on, let me hear what she said.
In Martha's Vineyard. As soon as the illegal aliens appear in public, out from the shadows, the Democratic Party shows its true racist and elitist colours. Suddenly
Okay, well, I agree with that, but are you saying that the treatment of the immigrants at Martha's Vineyard was racist? Because if that's the case, then that person would also be saying that the Republicans are racist for the way they're treating those immigrants, which I agree with, by the way. But I want to hear what AOC actually said.
AOC wants tent city for illegal aliens moved out of her district, another wrote. Finally, the political pleasantries didn't last long. AOC rips Mayor Adams' migrant tents in her district. We can get to a place with a better solution. The situation at the southern border of Texas is critical. The country is experiencing record high numbers of illegal immigrants crossing into the United States. So far in the 2022 fiscal year, Border Patrol agents have encountered 2.1 million migrants, and that's just the number of those they've seen. It has been one of the big political issues for the country.
I got to tell you guys, this issue and the gun issue are both issues that I don't know how to solve that problem. Like, I'm not very hopeful of a real common sense solution to the gun problem in America, other than maybe we can socialize mental health since we can't socialize healthcare. But I'll just tell you guys, I'm an open borders guy, and it's because I believe the Bible. The Bible has an open borders policy. Now, a person could argue, well, there are modern exigencies that aren't found in scripture, and so we have to augment our policy that way, and I would be fine with that if somebody would actually do the work and do that. But right now it's just, hey, they're illegal, blah 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 blah. So that's where I'm at with the immigration thing. But I'm trying to find where she booted those people out. Saying we need a better solution doesn't necessarily mean, and I know people are going to say you're not objective because it's AOC. I think we can get to a better solution here, or Ocasio-Cortez said. She's very much sides with the sentiment of Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson, who raised a number of concerns about the site earlier this week, including poor transit access and susceptibility to flooding. Ocasio-Cortez, the 10th to the 14th, figuring out if there are additional resources that could be allocated to help the city house migrants so that people can get into a better situation. Yeah, I'm not seeing where she was saying, yo, I'm booting these people out, blah, blah, blah. In her interview with the News, Ocasio-Cortez took issue with Iskol's argument. Zach Isco, Adams Emergency Management Commissioner, said the Orchard Bay camp does not need to comply with the right to shelter rules because the migrant wave is a humanitarian crisis outside the scope of the decades-old law. A concern raised by homeless advocates is whether the tents will comply with the local right to shelter law, which requires the city to provide a place to stay for anyone who needs it, as well as certain basic amenities like lockers, mail, and laundry access. But testifying before the city councilor earlier, Mr. Adams, Emergency Management Commissioner, said the Orchard Beach camp does not need to comply with the right to shelter rules because the migrant wave is a humanitarian crisis. In her interview with the News, Ocasio-Cortez took issue with his argument. It's important that we adhere to the spirit, not just the letter of the law. All people, regardless of who they are, deserve dignified, humane shelter. And this is a situation where we're going to be, of course, along with so many others, pay very close attention to. Okay, that's enough for me to say that it was a simple disagreement in how to take care of these people. It's not the same thing as saying, get these people out of here. As a matter of fact, when this Adams guy tried to argue that we don't have to trigger the right to shelter law because technically it's outside of the scope of the letter of the law, she responded by saying, well, there's a spirit of the law and the letter of the law, which means that she's saying we should house them. So I know what you guys are going to say, but that's not the same thing as AOC booting those people out. She's saying we need a better solution. And I've been in the Bronx. I know where Orchard Park is. Those people are going to be miserable. They're going to be miserable. And I'm not sure. You know, we were homeless for a significant period of time, but it was a domestic violence / mental health issue. And so there was external circumstances that made the miserable conditions in the shelter preferable to living in a house or an apartment. So I think those people are still going to be miserable, but I don't know the situation, the living situation. Yeah, it is susceptible to flooding. Like I said, I know that area, and when you guys hear, you know, because you know I lived in the Bronx and such. I mean, all those areas pretty much look the same, but they're going to have a very difficult time. They're going to have an extremely difficult time over there. On top of the integrating with the community at large, especially considering all the crime that's happening right now in New York City, I agree with her. There needs to be a real serious solution. How do we protect girls from getting trafficked? What are going to be there's security logistics. There's a bunch of logistics that you have to think about when you're talking about transplanting a whole group of people, especially vulnerable people who don't really have advocates at the legal level. These people are not U.S. citizens. There's a lot of shit that as a U.S. citizen that you're entitled to that you're not entitled to as an undocumented person. So actually, fuck the woos and the chos, to be honest with you. I'm on my Charleston White shit, Applejack. All these organizations that are designed to make black lives miserable and kill black people. These are the same dudes that'll kill their own brother, their own flesh and blood, and then the white cop shows up, they run like the wind. White dude shows up, they do exactly what they're told to do, like good little slaves, but they'll kill their brother on camera or in broad daylight. Man, fuck the woos and the choos. Fuck them boys. Fuck them. I don't care. I don't got love for none of them people. Honestly, fuck them. Yeah, I don't really I see what AOC is saying, and I don't think she's wrong for saying that. There are and it's funny, I've been a homeless person. So security is a major issue. One of the homeless shelters we're on actually allowed for co-eds as long as you were with somebody. So, you know, my brother was always running security at that spot because we had dudes, that were, whatever. And he handed me a little kitchen knife or whatever that he got from the cafeteria because he used to work. And he was like, yo, somebody goes after mine, go do work. So I personally had to deal with that. So you're talking about taking whole groups of people and putting them in an area. You can't restrict their freedom of movement, but you can't give them complete autonomy to move, because I don't know who's in there. I don't even know that how do you know that girl might, I talked to my brother about this because, he's familiar with ICE and the rest of those people, and say it that way. And I said, give me the real scoop on those dudes. He said, Vinny, he said, how do you know that girl with that dude is not being sex trafficked? Yeah, that's a good fucking question. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, let's just take them in, blah, blah, blah. But there's so many logistical issues that go around with that. And there's so many things that unless you've been in that situation, you have no idea all the logistical nightmares that could result from that situation, especially in the middle of the Bronx. I mean, holy shit. So no, I don't really think that's, I don't think they got AOC there. I think AOC, that was a very measured response. I think being a New York native, she understands the particular exigencies that would happen with that kind of operation in that particular area of that particular borough. Right now, the crime in the Bronx is the highest of all the 5 boroughs, and we're talking about 14-year-old kids riding on scooters and assassinating their 16-year-old rivals. That shit is happening in broad daylight in New York City right now. You put a group of vulnerable people in there that don't have a lot of money. There's just so many ways that can go really, 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 really bad. Really bad. So shout out to AOC. I thought that she was... I thought she was right. She wasn't. So Applejack says, with her disagreement, where do those migrants go? Well, she wasn't saying we can't have them here. She was saying we have to have a better solution than what Mayor Adams is pointing out. And I agree with her as a person who did time in a homeless shelter. There's a lot of logistical issues that they've got to iron out. And it doesn't seem to me that Mr. Adams has thought through that at all. It seems to me that Mr. Adams is like, yeah, we'll take them because he's trying to be a good liberal, whatever. But I don't think that he's thought it through. I think we can get to a place with a better solution here. So she's not even saying they shouldn't be here. What she's saying is the solution for right now is not a good solution. We need to figure out, and here's more of what she said actually. And I was, I didn't have time to research this story, guys. So, but here's more of what AOC said. She said, and look, when AOC is hypocritical, I have no problem pointing it out, obviously. I mean, I smoked her in my song, right? I'll keep going back to that. Ocasio-Cortez, who hasn't previously commented on the tent facility in her 14th congressional district, said she's in talks with other lawmakers about figuring out if there are additional federal resources that could be allocated to help the migrants so that people can get into a better situation. Right. She's saying we need more resources at the federal level so that we don't put these people on the ground in a tent and then say we did some good thing and girls are getting assaulted, all types of shit. Fabian Levy defended the tent plans and asked for a response to Ocasio-Cortez's remarks. No location is perfect, but we're confident in this decision, and we're glad that so many local elected officials recognize we're in an emergency and we're willing to work towards a successful rollout. Okay, that's a non-answer. That tells me that you don't have the solution to the problem either, bro. He's not saying that she doesn't bring up a good point. He's saying that he doesn't want to do the extra. He doesn't want to do the extra work to get the extra funds because the people locally have decided that they've got a good plan. Well, what the fuck is a good plan to a person who's a housed person who's never been homeless in their life? What he thinks is a good plan may or may not be a good plan for the people that are in the fucking tent city. This is what happens when you don't have the experience of the people that you're talking about you're going to take care of. We continue. The Adams administration is using the tent camp to alleviate pressure on the city's shelter system, which has been overburdened by an influx of more than 10,000 migrants who ended up in New York after crossing the U.S. and Mexico seeking hopes of asylum. Okay, so New York is already pulling their weight their shelters are at breaking capacity now with 10,000 migrants. And again, what that means, I can tell you right now, what that means is that a lot of women and small children have been placed in compromising situations. I can tell you right now. A lot of those shelters, they get federal funding. So if you're an abused women's shelter, it's basically only women. Like, so we did a couple abused women's shelter where it was only women and you wouldn't find any dudes there at all. But what happens when you're federally funded is the government can say, yeah, but we got this specific emergency. So now here are these 500 people, 20% of which are now dudes. Okay. So New York is already past capacity. So that tells me that there are a bunch of compromises being made and that the homeless community in that, the shelter community, because there's a difference between the homeless community and the shelter community. It's a different mindset, completely different subculture. But the shelter community in New York now is in serious, serious danger, particularly women in those situations. I can tell you that as boys, that was our number one concern, was our mom. So most of the time we were in a shelter, we were leaving a domestic violence situation, so we'd end up in abused women's homes. But there were times when we were just homeless, period, dead broke, had no money, couldn't house ourselves. And that one in New Jersey was a co-ed one, and there weren't a lot of dudes. But yeah, man, I went to bed a lot of times with that knife from the kitchen. A lot of times. We went to bed in that type of situation. We were always on go. And I was 13. My older brother was about 16. So what about the single mom with two babies? Now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all these dudes are in her homeless shelter now because there's no place for them to go. And New York wants to score brownie points and say, hey, we're amenable to immigrants. There's a lot of logistical concerns that I have here about this. Now, I'm also an immigrant, and like I said, I'm pro-biblical borders, which means open borders. So this is an extremely complex situation, and any politician who does anything with this is gonna look bad. Because really, I don't really know what the solve is. I really don't. And you know, if you think about it, that's why I said, like, you can call Joe Biden dumb all you want, but the first thing that Joe Biden did was he put Kamala as the immigration czar. And you know why he did that? He used that woman as a human shield because he knows there is no way to address this issue and not come off looking really bad. They did it during Trump. And all the silly brown people and white neolibs went around and acted like Trump was the second coming of Adolf Hitler for what he was doing with the border. And yet they did the exact same thing. And because Biden is a seasoned politician, he understood there was absolutely fucking nothing that woman was going to be able to do to solve the problem. She was going to look bad. And that's exactly what happened. So it's a very, very complex situation. No, Tasco. No, that was important to point out because it's an important discussion to have. I feel bad for not thoroughly vetting the info. I'll try to, but no. Do the exact same thing you did. Yeah, no, Sebastian, that's true. If we said our current foreign policy ideology is to go over and fuck up other nations and destroy them, what if all those billions that we just sent to the Nazis in Ukraine? I shouldn't have said that because there's real civilians on the ground in Ukraine that have nothing to do with this Nazi bullshit. But instead of sending all those billions to Ukraine, what if we put $100 billion into relief for immigrants? What would $100 billion have done? Could we build an entire city? Could we? I mean, hell. There's a lot of things we could do. Could we go to Puerto Rico and say, hey guys, could we build, these guys should be able to assimilate a lot better with you guys? There's so many things that we could do, but we're spending so much on jihad that this is another, we say like we should take care of the people here instead of people overseas. Like we should take care of our contiguous people, right? Like And I think it would be a really cool compromise to say, hey, we fucked you guys up a couple hundred years ago, and you guys are still dealing with the ramifications of that bullshit. And then on top of that, in the 80s, we were all over South America and then Mexico, Antigua, all that shit. Here's what we'll do. We'll invest $100 billion. We'll build an entire city out. And then you can come there, and then we'll be like a halfway point to process to, you finally get citizenship, whatever. There's a lot of shit that we could do, but we're spending so much money on jihad that pockets are at the pockets are at the end of that. Okay. Thank you guys very, 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 very much. I love Dwayne. I'm going to end with that. Our indigenous communities are generally the only ones with an immigrant problem. That is a fact. It's a fact. Republicans, deal with it. Okay. Let me read my little sister Michelle's thingamajiggy. Are you with my gift for both? Oh yeah, hell yeah! Send us a video, Michelle. That would be badass. We're a day or 2 or 3 away from having our 7th kid. So if you have my number, stay close to your phone, because it's a tradition. Once I have a kid, I usually send out notifications to my folks. Okay. All right, guys, I got to get out of here. Shout out to the big homies. My Yankees, they're in the playoffs, right? They're in the playoffs, I think. Okay. Consider doing live about council president. Who's council president? Who are we talking about? Yes. Okay. We're up against the Guardians at 7:00, and we're up 1-0. Okay. Excellent. All right, guys. Much love to all you beautiful people. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys. All that good stuff. Let me see if the outro still works. Is the outro still working? Nope, it's not. Okay. How's Sori? Sori, she's good. She is good. She's good. Like I said, we had a little bit of a situation a couple days ago. We went and took care of it. Everything was good. So we've got our ultrasound tomorrow. The due date is the 15th. So we'll see. Much love to all you beautiful people. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are.